One of Nintendo's greatest mascots is probably not the ones that you think of right away. Obviously there's Mario, Link, Pikachu, and a few others, but there's another character that represented an entire generation of Nintendo consoles. Of course, I'm talking about the Miis. The Miis used to be one of the most iconic parts of Nintendo's brand. The Wii, 3DS, and Wii U all used the Miis to create some really amazing games. But now, on the Switch, you don't see them anywhere. So what happened? Why did Nintendo drop something that was so beloved by fans? And are the Miis gone forever? When you boot up the Wii, you're immediately greeted by one of its most important apps, the Mii channel. At first glance, this is just a simple character customization thing, right? Well, yes, but this little app would go on to inspire so many games that spanned across multiple consoles. But why? Well, if you don't already know, the Miis are basically just goofy little characters that are meant to be customized so that you can put yourself or your friends into these games. And this was a genius decision by Nintendo. Not only are the Miis a great form of marketing, but they also just make games feel more personal to the average player. By being able to put anyone you know into a real video game, the games felt like you were actually playing against them. And this fit games like Wii Sports perfectly. You weren't just controlling a fictional character by pressing buttons. You were actually playing, and you were doing all the motions to control it. There was no longer a disconnect between you and your character, because you are your character. Any way you move in real life, so will your Mii. During the Wii's life cycle, many of the most popular games were these. Wii branded games, and front and center of all of them were the Miis. And when you saw the Miis, you knew what the game was all about. Just having a good time with your friends and family. And when the 3DS eventually came out, it was clear that the Miis were here to stay. Nintendo fans had become attached to their Miis, so bringing them to the next console was a no-brainer. And on the 3DS, one of the most important games for the Miis would come out, Tomodachi Life. This completely changed everything about their Miis. It gave them voices, personalities, interests, and even relationships. It really made the Miis feel even more personal, but still keeping them fun and goofy. You could have two completely random characters from Mario to your grandma marry each other and have a kid. It was ridiculous. This game was a massive success, becoming the 11th best-selling game on the 3DS, with over 6 million copies sold. Pretty good for a completely new and unique game. And Tomodachi Life would go on to inspire its spiritual successor, Miitopia. This was an RPG-style game, but with the same goofy charm as Tomodachi Life. And these two games breathed a whole new life to the Miis. And with the Wii U also having them, this might have been the golden age of the Miis. Nintendo Land on the Wii U took the basic idea of something like Wii Sports and expanded it to be even crazier. This time you and your friends were at a Nintendo amusement park and you go around and play a bunch of different minigames based on a bunch of different franchises. This was probably the biggest thing on the Wii U that starred the Miis, but it certainly wasn't the only thing with them. There were definitely a few other games that used them, but the most important thing was this. Your whole account was now based on these Miis. And that meant when the Miiverse came out, you could see everyone else's Miis. The Miis weren't just your avatars anymore, but your whole identity. This also happened on the 3DS with Street Pass, because when you met someone on Street Pass, you met their Miis rather than them. The Miis were evolving into something greater than just a simple character customization, but into extensions of yourself. This became even more apparent when miitomo came out for the phone. Your profile and account was all about your Mii. So if the Miis were becoming such an integral part of the community that Nintendo was building, why did they completely disappear just 2 years after the release of miitomo? Well, on the Switch you probably aren't going to find the Miis unless you're actively looking for it. You have to scroll past all of these character icons until you find this tiny box that says Miis. And then and only then you can create a Mii. But unlike the previous 3 consoles, the Miis on the Switch don't do anything. They're just icons for your profile. And there are barely any games that use them. I mean, there's Mario Maker 2, but that's just your online profile. And then there's Smash Bros, which are just the Mii characters from Smash 4, which they had to include because they brought back every fighter. And then there's the worst offender of them all, Nintendo Switch Sports, because they replaced the Miis with these creatures. These things look like they're from a bad kids movie. Oh, but don't worry, they still have Miis. They're just pushed to the background and look really unnatural. So, is that it? Have the Miis been replaced by these foul-looking beings? It's starting to seem like it. Over the course of the Switch's life, Nintendo has been slowly but surely phasing out the Miis, only giving a few tiny drops of them like a remake of a 3DS game, as opposed to the previous consoles which had the Miis games coming out like every year. So why did this happen? Well, my theory is that Nintendo is trying to differentiate the Switch from their older consoles. And of course, this is all about the failure of the Wii U. One of the biggest reasons for the Wii U's failure was that Nintendo made it seem too similar to the Wii. People saw the two consoles as the same, and as a result, they saw no reason to get a new one, since it seemed just about the same as the older one. And this really got Nintendo scared that it would happen to the Switch as well. They feared people would see it as just another Wii or Wii U, and refused to buy it. And this is why everything about the Switch seems so different from everything they've done in the past. There's no music in the eShop or in the menu, and everything feels kinda lifeless. Nintendo wanted to make their system feel new and distinct, and to be fair, it worked. The Switch is the best-selling Nintendo home console ever made, and it has a pretty good chance of overtaking the PS2, unless a new Nintendo console replaces it soon. So is the Switch succeeding because they got rid of the Miis? No, of course not. In my opinion, I think getting rid of the Miis was pretty pointless. People were really attached to them, and now they genuinely miss them. And the sad part is that Nintendo might not bring them back. They view the Switch as a massive success, which it is, but they also might mistakenly attribute some of that success to the removal of the Miis. But the Miis did have somewhat of a controversy. The Miiverse, which had Mii in the name, was exposed for having very creepy things going on with it, and consequently, it was shut down. So maybe Nintendo is scared that people now associate the Miis with the Miiverse, but I really think that could only be a very small amount of people. I think the majority of people remember the Miis fondly. Over the 10 years of Miis, many beloved games came out on multiple consoles, and when I remember the Miis, that is what I think of. So who knows, maybe by the time that the next Nintendo console comes out, enough time will have passed from the Wii U that they feel that they can bring it back. But I wouldn't get my hopes up. Thanks for watching. See you later.